Today is Thursday, December 7th, 2023, and welcome to the regular meeting session of the Milford School Committee. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Milford TV, and copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. Good to see everybody tonight. Our first agenda item will be our student representative update, so turn it over to Dee. Good to see you tonight.
Good to see you guys too. It's just me today. Andrew's at a track meet, so I'm the only one here. So winter sports started after Thanksgiving break, so those are going great. It's like our second week. It's going well. As I said, winter track has their first meet today against KP, and then the boys and girls swim team has their first meet tomorrow against Mansfield. Mr. Basha received the 2022-2023 Wrestling Coach of the Year Award from the MIAA, which is pretty amazing. And then the MHS Theater Workshop will have their shows this weekend. They're going to present the play Clue to us, and it's going to be on December 9th, 2 to 7 p.m., and then December 10th at 3 p.m. As for music, MHS Music had a lot of students make it into central districts and all-state qualifying cuts. For those of you who don't know, Central Districts is like a selective band group that has 30 schools competing for a small number of spots for each seat, and a lot of our students were able to make it. Andrew and I didn't really come up with a lot of like things that were negative, so to say. The one thing that we did hear a lot about was the pool locker room. It wasn't just me, it was a lot of other girls, especially girls. I don't really know about the guys, but they were saying how like the smell wasn't very like bearable. Like we kind of go in there and like run out as fast as we can. And I know it's not just swimmers that use that locker room. A lot of adults also use it because they swim there in the morning for lap swim. A lot of people use it for splash hit. Our rec teams use it. So it's definitely a widely used facility, but it's just something that we thought of. And we also talked to the facilities manager, and he said he will take care of it. So, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'll open up to the board if anybody has any questions or comments. Oh, go ahead.
I'll just say, as always, thanks for the update, BD, and certainly not a requirement, but I definitely wanted to extend the offer to you and Andrew to stay at the full meeting. I think, in the past we've had topics come up where it actually is really helpful to hear kind of the student representative perspective. So even if you wanted to alternate which meetings, if you were interested and available to stay, I know you have a very heavy course load in addition to extracurriculars, but if you were ever interested, we would definitely love to have your participation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
So now, thank you for saying that. It's, certainly any feedback during different topics of conversation is always warranted, and we encourage that too, so appreciate that. Yes, John?
I'll just reiterate what I said previously, and I know you passed it on to our facilities director, but anything that's a problem, get the message to us somehow, so that we can act on it before tonight. And then you did already pass it on to a school personnel individual, but we're here to help, I think.
All right, thank you.
Again, thank you very much. I always appreciate your time coming in. Look forward to seeing you in the new year. So,
thank you.
And good luck with swimming.
Thanks.
Moving on to the approval of minutes. A couple sets of minutes. The first one is from the regular session held on November 16th, 2023. Any discussion there? Not seeing a, so looking for a motion to accept the minutes for November 16th, 2023. Motion by Megan, second by Brendan, all in favor, and that is unanimous. And the next set of minutes will be for the executive session minutes on November 16th. This is a vote to approve, but and not to release. So any discussion on the November 16th executive session? Not seeing any, so looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Matt, second by Brendan, then in favor, so it will be 4 in favor and then 2 abstentions. So all right, excellent. Good. All right, moving on to announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Committee members, anything in that?
I would
Thank-
just do a quick shout out to all of our student musical performers. I was able to go to Woodland's 5th grade band and chorus last night before, the night seemed to blend. And it's just honestly tremendous what those students are able to do. I don't think with 10 years of experience, I could perform to some of the level. And so just they're so motivated and they should be really proud of their efforts. So kudos to the instructional staff as well as the student performers.
Thank you for sharing that. Committee members, Dr. McIntyre?
Yeah, just a quick, I want to add to what Dee Dee was sharing about Coach Basha. He also won the District 1 Coach of the Year, so beyond just Massachusetts, which includes all the New England states, New York, and New Jersey. And this makes him eligible as one of 8 coaches to win the National Coach of the Year.
Wow.
So it's huge. And very, very rare to see that happen,
Wow.
I think, for any high school and when you consider New York, New Jersey, and all of New England. So we'll keep you posted if anything materializes there, but back-to-back state champions will sometimes do that for you. He's done a great job.
Great. Thank you. See anything else? All right. Moving on then to invitation to speak. Not seeing anybody here for invitation to speak. So the next item will be the chairperson update. And again, this is something just trying to give a spot just in case there's any announcements, things of that nature. Everybody kind of knows, because the meeting notice came out, that FinCom, the capital meeting request for Wednesday, April 10th. So again, this just gives me that ability in case things were not announced previously, that whoever in this chairperson seat can go through that. Also, the Milford TV, the committee opening there, obviously nobody has reached out, so we'll, after the first of the year and get through the holidays, I figure we'll post that,
You can probably put that on the bulletin,
Yeah.
and put it on the website.
right, work with Melissa on that and Kevin on that, and then hopefully we can, within the first couple meetings, we can try to get some individuals in, probably more the second meeting overall, let people get kind of situated after. And much like we did for the community use, hopefully we can get some interested parties, bring them in, and then we can make that appointment. So, sounds good. And then one more general update. Our meeting minutes taker has given us a timeline. So she will be moving on from our meetings within probably the next 2 to 3 months overall. So the reason why I'm bringing it up now is just if anybody knows anybody within the community that would be interested, we'll start that process. And then basically we'll work with Erica over maybe a couple meetings just to understand how best to take notes and kind of use any of her professional opinions throughout the process. So.
I believe I can jump in. We
Yeah.
either posted that today or it's going to be posted shortly.
Okay.
That position. I know Melissa was working on that.
Yes, yeah, so.
So if I could just add, this is the first I'm hearing of that, so I'm very sorry to
Yeah.
hear that you're going, Erica.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed working with you for the last 8 or so years.
Yeah, we have a couple more months, so I'm sure that as time gets closer, we'll definitely have Erica, instead of being behind us, be more in front of us. Where we can, yeah, I know,
Very enthusiastic
yeah.
about that.
So, in any case, all right, very good. All right, so moving on, we're going to do a quick little shift of our agenda. Going to move up item number 10 to be next, and that will be the report from the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. This will be our Woodland Elementary School schedule update. So Principal Kernan, if you'd like to come on up and join us.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so thanks for having me. Craig mentioned that the school committee was interested in getting an update on a fairly significant change that we made to our 5th grade instructional model this year. Something that we started to undertake last spring and continued our work during the spring, over the summer, and implemented this fall. So just wanted to go through a couple of highlights and updates for you in response to a couple of questions that Craig gave me to kind of frame our discussion. So first, what changes were made to grade 5? The biggest thing is we went from a 5x5 model to a 4x4 model. And what that means is 5 classes, 5 periods. We switched it to 4 classes and 4 major periods. Okay, reading, math, science were not impacted, other than the periods were lengthened to 60 minutes. Okay, those classes are fairly similar, although reading did pick up a few of the standards from ELA, the language standards. What we did do is we combined our ELA class and our social studies class to make a humanities class. Okay, that's probably the biggest addition to what we did. So all of our four classes are now 60 minutes in length. They're not all 60-minute consecutive minutes. Some of the times they're 30 and 30. Sometimes they're 45 and 15, split different ways depending on some other scheduling needs. But there's 60 minutes of time devoted to each subject. As a result of that, we had to cut back a little on 5th grade recess, and that went from 30-minute periods to 15-minute periods. That was a big change that the kids hold against me. But you know, we had to give something up here to make this change. And the other thing that was a change for our 5th grade schedule itself was our win or intervention blocks. They were replaced with X blocks, which includes intervention. But it also includes enrichment and other academic work such as ST Math. Some of the teams are using them to do educational podcasts, independent reading, other types of academic engagement opportunities. And the reason for that is the intervention blocks, as they're scheduled for grades 3 and 4, became really hard to squeeze into the 5th grade rotation because they were on 60-minute periods. And really when we get to, and I can tell you why, you know, one of the challenges that came with that later on is the 5th grade schedule really drives everything else, because we had to slot the 5th grade related arts classes at certain times so that they fell at certain hours of the day, because the other 2 grades are on 45-minute cycles and 5th grade is on a 60-minute cycle. So in order to make it work, designated intervention time was something that we had to give up and change a little bit. So we still are providing intervention services in reading and math, but it might look a little different where the teachers are pushing in to general ed classes, or where there's opportunities, they are doing some pull-out sessions for our 5th grade students. So our 5th grade students are still receiving reading and math intervention. It's just not a designated time in the schedule per se. Okay. The reason we made this change, the biggest reason we made this change really, was all about providing additional instructional time in math. When, you know, we've been looking at this analysis now, Craig, for what, 7 years before we made this change?
Yes.
And 5th grade was receiving the fewest amount of instructional minutes in math in all of K to 12. So K to 4 and then 6 to 12 were all receiving a lot more time than our 5th grade was, and that was just due to the rotation and all the other needs of the elementary model. So we've been talking about different ways of doing this, and finally we said, you know, we got a Fisher cut bait. We've been talking about this for a long time, and that's why we kind of pulled the trigger on making this change. Additionally, we felt like this was a good time to do that. Last year, as you all know, we brought in illustrative math as our vehicle for providing our math curriculum. Illustrative math was calling for 60-minute lessons. Last year, when we had 45-minute periods, our math teacher, our 5th grade math teachers were feeling really crunched for time to get those lessons in, or they were having to carry lessons over to the following day. And the continuity of instruction, you know, kids retaining that information was harder for them to do. They did the best that they could. I thought they did an excellent job, but providing the full 60 minutes so that the teachers can implement the lessons as they were designed was really something that this was, you know, a win-win for us when we made this change. Some of the supports we provided for the teachers in order to implement this. We provided them contractual time for planning in the spring and in the fall. Our humanities teachers, the teachers that we designated for this transition, were provided, I think it was 4 days in the spring, where we got substitutes for them and they could plan the curriculum for the fall. Many of the teachers also worked in collaboration with our reading teachers, our special education teachers, and our English learner teachers during the spring and during the summer as well. During the summer, obviously, it was stipend and paid time for teachers to come in. It was voluntary, and many of them did volunteer. They volunteered to get paid, I should say. They were paid for it. but they came in over the summer to do that curriculum planning work. One of the things that we knew, though, is that, you know, between the springtime and the summertime, they wouldn't be able to plan an entire year's worth of curriculum. Not only that, we wanted to try it and see how it was going first, and then make some revisions. So during the fall, we've done the same. We've provided some release time for those teachers to kind of plan 3 months at a time, and kind of do some unit planning, lesson planning, gathering resources, things like that. We did meet with a consultant who does a lot of this work and really focuses in on a humanities type of curriculum and social studies. But our teachers really, after meeting with her, felt like, you know what, we can do this on our own. But it was an opportunity to talk things through, but our teachers felt like they were confident in implementing and planning this curriculum. Obviously, we also purchased a number of textbooks, or no, I shouldn't say textbooks, but trade books that the teachers were looking for that would align with their curriculum, consumables, materials, and things like that they would need to put this curriculum in place. And then each week, one of the things that we've done is we've gotten really creative, and you know, I think this was an idea that one of my assistant principals had, of figuring out a way to do some release time each week for each department, so that each department at grade 5 could have some common planning time. It was really started as a request from the humanities, and we couldn't figure out, like, how can we get these teachers some time every week to be able to plan together. Each team in grade 5, they have a chance to plan with their grade level team, so the reading teacher, the math teacher, science teacher, and humanities teacher. Each week they have that designated time. But the humanities, the 4 humanities teachers, the 4 reading teachers, they don't have that time in the schedule. So we figured out a way to do that where each group is able to do that 1 day a week at dismissal time. So we divide the kids up, and the teachers are able to meet and plan and talk about this week's lessons, last week's lessons, what's going well, what resources they could share. So they do have time each week to be able to plan together and meet, which is, it was a really creative idea to figure out how to do that, and I'm glad we could provide it. But not just for the humanities teachers, for the reading teachers, the science teachers, the math teachers, and so on. Okay. So how is the humanities block coming along? I think it's outstanding. You know, I'm watching it in action, both as an educator and administrator, but also as a parent of a 5th grade student. And I love it. It's been great. My daughter comes home just, you know, loving the social studies curriculum, but is also doing a lot of great work in writing and the language standards. I see how the teachers are blending those 2 subject matters together in a really thoughtful and, I think, effective and efficient way. You know, it's constantly being tweaked. We knew right from the get-go that we're not going to have an entire humanities curriculum on September 1 for the entire year, so it's ongoing work. But we also knew, and we talked to the teachers about this, like, you know, this is going to evolve year after year as well. We're going to go through this experience this year, and we're going to make some changes and tweaks, because that's what we do. That's what we do in every curriculum. But there was I think a lot of self-inflicted pressure of, we need to have this all set and ready to go. And we've been consistent with the message of, hey, you know, let's do 2 or 3 months at a time, and then, you know, reevaluate and assess how we're doing and see how the work is going. So it's been really great. You know, we're looking at figuring out where there's some gaps between the reading curriculum, the humanities curriculum, and where some of those language standards might be kind of caught in the middle. There's certainly some language standards that the humanities teachers are saying, this is going to be ours, we're going to take this on. The reading teachers are taking on some of the others, and we've got to figure out some of those that are kind of caught in the middle. So we're talking that through, and we're making sure that we hit every standard, doing a little crosswalk between the 2 curriculums. We're also making sure that we're working our ELD, our English Language Development Standards, into our daily units, daily lessons, and unit plans, making sure that we have very specific language targets that are involved in each humanities lesson. And we're also doing a lot of work with our special education department in supporting the accommodations and modifications that need to be made for our students with disabilities. in figuring out what is not, or what is and what is not accessible for specific students, and making sure that we are adapting our lesson plans, being very inclusive with our instructional models. So that's a constant kind of, all right, this is our plan, let's go and execute it, let's assess it and evaluate it and make some changes. But overall, I think everyone's been working so hard, from our humanities teachers to our ELD teachers, our special education teachers, and certainly our reading teachers as well as collaborators and colleagues. There's been a lot of really great work and a lot of hard work that's been put into this. And I really have to tip my cap to these teachers. They have been phenomenal. They have been flexible. They've shown each other grace and understanding. They've been so supportive of each other. It's been really encouraging to see the teamwork and the camaraderie that's been put into this. So I think the humanities block is coming along really well. Okay. The next couple of slides, I won't read them, each one, but I wanted to give you an overview of where, the different units of study are happening, when they're happening, and where they're happening, both on the social studies side as well as the language topics. And obviously there's a little bit more detail here on September through February, because that's really the units that we've laid out so far. And then in January, we'll be looking at developing the units for March, April, May, and June. Okay. But so far in talking with the humanities teachers, one of the interesting takeaways from them is that they feel like we're putting a lot of emphasis on language because this is new to us, and we want to make sure we do our due diligence on the language. And some of the ELA teachers that switched to humanities are saying, boy, we're really focused on the social studies piece because that's new to them. So they're almost overcompensating. But I think overall there's been a really nice balance between the two. When I observe lessons in the humanities classes, it's really a nice balance. A lot of the language study, whether it's vocabulary, spelling, sentence structure, grammar, mechanics, it's being done through the lens of the social studies topic or the lesson in social studies. And then during social studies, they're doing a lot of work with writing, with language. They're doing a lot of response to text, where they're responding to nonfiction, they're responding to artifacts, they're responding to primary sources in writing. So there's the two subjects, and Craig, you and I talked about this last winter, they really work well together. When you go through the social studies standards, you're like, that feels more like a language standard, and vice versa. The language standards, they lend themselves really well to the social studies and history topics.
I agree, and I think the social studies standards are written so that they do align with the literacy standards.
Yeah. So skipping forward a few slides, how are the reading teachers adapting to these changes? Well, for 3 of the 4 reading teachers, there's been no change really, other than picking up some of the language standards that were from ELA. And the one, and I use quotations, new reading teacher, was an ELA teacher in 5th grade for over 20 years. So it's not a huge change or adjustment. All of these teachers, our 4 reading teachers, closely collaborate with their humanities colleague at each team, and it looks a little different. Different relationships, different personalities, different ways of doing things. But the humanities and reading teachers on each team are really closely aligned. I think our reading teachers would say, what they have said to me is, they're picking up more of the grammar and mechanics than they've done in years past. Whereas they might have glossed over something or just mentioned it real quickly, knowing that the ELA teacher was going to pick it up. They're being a lot more intentional in pointing things out and discussing some of the grammar and mechanics. The reading teachers are also trying to incorporate a little bit more nonfiction into the reading curriculum as part of that process. And like I said, they're very intentional and coordinated with their partner teachers between the 2 subjects. And, you know, a number of teachers have commented the kids are often like, hey, we're doing this in the humanities, or we just did that, we did that in reading. And that's what we want to hear. Some of the kids today, actually, I was in a meeting today where a science teacher was like, oh, that's how we have to do things in humanities. And that, like, because they were using a graphic organizer and an acronym to do a response to text where they had to, restate the prompt, they had to answer, they had to cite evidence, they had to explain it. And they're like, oh, we got to do this again in science class? Yes, you do. But that instruction in language and writing is happening across multiple subjects, which is what we want. So how are the reading and humanities teachers collaborating and coordinating? Well, they're sharing unit plans, they're sharing lesson plans. As I mentioned, there's lots of different ways of coordination between the two at each team. It depends on the rhythm of their team. There's different class makeups as well. For example, a team 12 has got 2 classes of newcomer students. So that's going to look a little bit different between the reading and humanities teachers. Team 10 has got 4 sections of special education students. So that's going to look a little bit different. So each team looks a little bit different, but there's plenty of coordination happening between the two. We did have a recent kind of debrief with our humanities teachers, reading teachers, special education and English language teachers, just reflecting on how the first couple of months have gone, talking about what's coming up, and then looking forward. Some of the big takeaways was we really got to nail down what our scope and sequence is for, for grammar and mechanics K through 5, so that we're not doing a lot of duplicate work. I see some of the same language standards that are being taught in 3rd grade are being taught in 5th grade, and we need to be a little bit more critical about why that's happening, and that will save us some time, free up some time to do some other things, maybe a little bit better or a little bit differently at each grade level. Another one that we've got to nail down is where narrative writing is going to happen in 5th grade. Previously, that was something that happened in ELA, but narrative writing is a little bit, we got to figure out how that's going to play into the humanities curriculum, given that the humanities curriculum is based on history. So the narrative piece is a little bit different. So we got to figure out how to do that, how to tell a story a little bit differently. Where and when it fits into either reading or humanities, we're still trying to figure out that. But that's I think probably the most significant concern our humanities and reading teachers had is where and when are we going to teach narrative writing? We feel good about persuasive and opinion writing. That lends itself well to the humanities. We feel good about expository writing. That also lends itself really well to humanities. And the reading piece, a lot of it is response to text, where they're reading a novel and responding to that. It's not really storytelling. So we've got to figure that piece out. That's probably the most significant concern that we have between the 2 subjects. Okay. In terms of its impact on other teachers and other subjects, how are the math and science teachers adapting, and what the schedule change does to their content areas? Both groups of teachers reported similar feelings. The extra time, it doesn't seem like a lot, 15 minutes, it's not a big deal. It is. It really is. In an elementary classroom, when you're transitioning kids between classrooms, settling in and then packing up is sometimes it's an adventure. It takes a little while. It takes some time to get the kids ready to go and move them on to the next class. So that extra 15 minutes really does allow them 55 minutes of time to really get into a lesson and not feel rushed. The pacing of the lessons and the units have improved for 5th grade math. Again, students are also more familiar with the illustrative math routines and language, so that's also helped. But just that extra time, I think that our math teachers are really feeling good about that. It's similar reports from our science teachers, although to be fair, 3 of our 4 science teachers in grade 5 are new to 5th grade science. So they don't know any better, similar to the kids. Like, the question is, well, how are the kids adapting to the humanities in the hour-long classes? Well, our 5th grade students have never known any different. So it just feels this is the way it is. So for 3 of our 4 science teachers who are new, this is the way it's always been. for them. For our one teacher who's been doing it the 45 minutes for years and years, he reported this, the hour is great. It's so much more time to delve into things, ask those extra questions, give kids a little extra help. That extra 15 minutes in the hour-long block has been really great. Our teachers in 5th grade are also piloting some of the Open SciEd curriculum units, so that extra time to explore those units and these new resources and these new lessons has been really well received. Next slide, Craig. In terms of benefits to our EL students and our special education students, I think probably the number one benefit is it's fewer transitions and one less class to navigate. I think that's incredibly beneficial. But for me, I think the biggest change and the biggest benefit is it's forced us to kind of rethink and reorganize how we're providing push-in and pull-out services. And what we've really emphasized is being a lot more inclusive of our EL students and our special education students, and giving them more opportunities, more access at grade level content, grade level materials. More co-teaching and collaboration is happening in this model, which has been really exciting. We have teachers, that are doing a lot more mixed grouping. So whereas they might be only working with just EL students or just special education students, doing this in a more inclusive way is forcing our teachers to, they're pulling groups of kids with that. Some are special education, some are EL, some are regular ed students, and it's been really exciting to see. I'll give you an example. So, where we might have students who had, as part of their special education IEP, their service delivery might say 45 minutes of support in reading, 45 minutes of support in writing. So there's 90 minutes of time. Well, between reading and humanities, there's 2 hours. So there's an extra half an hour there where we have to think about, these kids can't just plop them in for a half an hour of a class. No, we've got to be a lot more coordinated and supportive of making sure that the work that we're doing is we have the accommodations or the modifications that we need to make so that the kids are experiencing the 5th grade curriculum and the 5th grade content. And I think that's what's been really exciting. There was some nervous folks at the beginning of the year, this kid can't read at a 5th grade level. No, that's not entirely accurate. They might not be able to decode at a 5th grade level, but they can comprehend at a 5th grade level. So we might have to provide the accommodations or some modifications to help them, decode the text, or we might have to provide a different kind of text. But the content and the comprehension of the 5th grade standard is something that they can do and they can access. And what we've seen from kids is kids who are feeling really good about themselves. Because whereas, they're always pulled out and said, well, you're going to get something different, and it felt different because they were going somewhere else. Now we're doing a lot more push-in, and they're like, I'm just like everybody else. I'm a 5th grader, and I'm doing the same. I'm studying the American Revolution just like everyone else, and that's been really wonderful to see. I think that's been the biggest benefit, is us just having to rethink how we're providing those services within the humanities class, within the reading class. And again, the other part, as I mentioned, was the transitions, the fewer transitions during the day, I think has been great. So I think those are some unintended / intended benefits to these changes. So what are the challenges that this schedule change has presented? As I mentioned before, grade 5 really drives the rest of the schedule for the building. The related arts, lunch, et cetera, have to be at certain times in order to fit as many hour-long blocks into the school day. And again, I mentioned the WIN blocks don't exactly line up because the WIN blocks for the other grade levels are happening on 30 or 45-minute cycles, so it doesn't always line up real well with the 5th grade schedule. I'd also be lying if I didn't say the special education and ELD services, making those minutes of service delivery that are in students' IEPs, making those work has been a challenge at times. Making the inclusion work, it's been a challenge at times. Inclusion is awesome. It's what we want. That's what we're going for at all times. However, there are times where we have to provide services to kids in an alternate setting, in a different setting. And so making it all work and making it as seamless as possible so that kids don't feel like the curriculum or their school day is entirely disjointed, we've had to be creative at times. And we've had to kind of go back to the drawing board and write things down in pencil, and that's okay. We knew that was going to happen, but we've had more than one time where we have to regroup as a team and say, all right, let's look at this again. Let's try this. It didn't work. Let's go back again. How are we going to figure this out? So making those minutes work for ELD and special education has been a challenge, but not one that we can't handle. We can figure it out. As I mentioned, recess. I have one fifth grader who I know is very unhappy with 15 minutes and questions me quite often as to why it's 15 minutes and not 30 anymore, Dad. But 15 minutes is still, we still give kids plenty of opportunity to get outside, run around, be kids. I still think that's appropriate and actually is a lot more in line with what they're going to experience at Stacy in 6th grade in terms of recess and playtime. I think, to be fair, especially to our teachers, creating a whole class and a content while we're implementing it, it's a lot of work and it's stressful. And as I said, to their credit, they've been wonderful. They've been so supportive of each other and rolled up their sleeves and got to work. But, the adage of, building the plane while it's flying, that's not easy to do. So a lot of credit to those staff members that have put in the amount of work that they have. And then the common planning by department wasn't possible to do within the content of the schedule. But that was an issue before this schedule change. Wasn't created by this schedule change. But as I mentioned, we came up with a creative way kind of to work around it. That works. It's not perfect, but it works. So at this point, what any tweaks that I would consider? No, not at this time. I think this has been enough change. But we're always open-minded. As I said, we've always been committed and open to say, hey, let's try it this way. If it doesn't work, we'll go back and figure it out. We'll keep adapting and changing. As I said, it was never the goal was never to open the year with a finished product. We knew that there was going to be some bumps in the road and some obstacles. But I got a great group of teachers, a really great group of teachers at Woodland that can handle, as I said, back in the spring, when people were not always entirely thrilled with the decision and weren't always happy with me and this decision. Craig, they might have been a little sore at you too. That's okay. But they weren't always entirely thrilled, but I said with confidence to our 5th grade team, I know that this is going to be hard, I know that this is going to be a challenge, but I have complete and total confidence in you guys, total trust. It's a great group of teachers, and they've proven me right there, without a doubt. So I think that's all I got. Last one. How are we going to figure out if this is successful? Certainly, we're gonna look at some of the assessment data. We're hoping that it holds steady, or in some cases improves. On the ELA side, I know that you guys have taken a look at the MCAS scores for 5th grade ELA, and they're outstanding. I would expect that to hold steady. I'm hopeful that the extra time with math will help to maybe show a little bit of change in our math MCAS results. Same thing with science. That's one, but that's just one measure. We have iReady as well, classroom assessments that we're doing, observations of the classroom, and certainly probably the most important is getting the feedback from the teachers and getting their input on how this is going. Do they feel it's successful? Do they feel like it's working? Do they feel like our kids are getting what they need and making effective progress? I think the teachers are the experts, so hearing from them in reflection, I think will be a critical part of evaluating the success of this.
Thank you very much.
I think that's it. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Questions for me?
Appreciate, yep. Open up the board for any questions. Robin?
Thank you for bringing this. I had brought up a few meetings ago that I was interested in just hearing an update
Yep.
on this, so I appreciate it. I just had a couple questions, just to kind of make sure I'm conceptualizing
Sure.
everything clearly. So it sounds like for the fifth graders, those core content areas are 60 minutes, but things like related, like art, gym, those are still 45
45.
minutes.
Yep.
And that's why the X block is shorter and
Yeah.
a different amount of time.
Yep.
Okay. And then for students who are in, say, like pull-out special education, they'd still be getting 45 minutes reading, writing, and then the 15 minutes would be so the amount of pull-out versus inclusion is probably the same, it's just what
It's
content
similar.
areas
Yep.
is different?
It's
Okay.
similar, but I think we've also, I've challenged teachers to look at that pull-out time as, is it something that we can be a little bit more thoughtful and intentional with? Like, this is something that absolutely needs to be done in pull-out. Or is there opportunities to do, mostly pull-out, but then push those kids back in for some of the content or some of the other fifth grade standards, because we want our kids to still have that fifth grade experience. I want fifth graders to be fifth graders.
Okay.
So we have asked them to just be a little bit more thoughtful and reflective on that, and it also depends on some of the individuals. Some of the kids, I think, some of the special education services have been kind of carried over from year to year in a traditional way. And I think we need to rethink that for some kids. That, do they actually need all 45 minutes, or can we change that? And that's not something we're just going to do, carte blanche. That's going to be done as part of the special education process, of course. But I've challenged our teachers, and not just in fifth grade, across the board. How can we be more inclusive? Where are there opportunities for our kids where, yeah, they might need pull-out instruction for, as I use the example, they might need it for decoding, but does that need to be done in 45 minutes, or can that decoding lesson happen in 30, where we can buy back 15 minutes of time to get them into the classroom, into the general ed classroom, to have 15 minutes of time doing the comprehension work. So just being a little bit more thoughtful and breaking down what the students' needs are. And rather than just saying 45 minutes pull out reading, maybe it's 45, and maybe it's 20 of decoding. That's what they need, and the other 20 that they can do in the classroom with their peers. So I've asked them to be a little more thoughtful about that.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question too, and so this is kind of a different question, but so we now have a group of teachers who are teaching similar but slightly different than what they were initially teaching and licensed in. And I don't even know if all the teachers would want this, but as a district, have we thought about supporting them? So I know the middle school humanities license is grades 5 through 8. If any of those teachers did want to get that license, is there a way we could provide support around that or help them? I feel like if they're doing this for us and they made this transition, it would be
Certainly.
nice if we could, if they want to get that, just provide some type
Certainly.
of support around helping with the MTEL or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I don't know the actual regulations
Yeah.
around it, but I'm betting it's not that big of a jump.
It
Anyways.
doesn't look like it is. I was just looking at the requirements. It just seems like financially it would probably be pretty low cost to the district to do so, because it would be an additional license. And I don't know, it would just be, I think, nice if that was something we said, if you want to get this license, we'll support you in doing so since you made this transition. So just kind of a thought.
It's a great idea. Yeah, Craig, something we can talk about with them.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We're on to other board members. Megan?
Sorry. Thanks, Tim. So first off, kudos to you and the teachers. I appreciate this. It was a boatload of work, and it doesn't end. So thanks for everything that went into it. Could you just speak a little bit more to sort of, when you mentioned the scope and sequence, it triggered it for me, the consistency of the curriculum across the teams, and kind of how is that facilitated? Is that in this common planning time? Is there a CTL?
Yeah. Well, the humanities department, I think, is being really, they're really trying to keep things very similar.
Okay.
And do things very similar,
Got
almost daily.
Okay.
I mean, I could probably walk into any of the 4 humanities classes
Got
and
it.
see a pretty similar lesson
Okay.
happening, and that's intentional.
Okay.
I think as a way to support each other.
Sure.
And kind of going through this journey together and doing the work together and being able to have common experiences and
Sure.
reflections. I think they're being very intentional about like, hey, this is how we're gonna do each lesson.
Got it.
So, you know, in any of the 4 rooms,
Yeah.
the lesson progression
Okay.
is very similar. They all start
Got
with
it.
the same things, same material, same content.
Okay.
It might be off by a day or 2,
Sure.
but not by much.
Okay.
It's very similar. In terms of the reading, though, again, the reading hasn't really changed.
Mhm.
I mean, other than picking up a few of the language standards. So
Got
it's
it.
not really any different for them.
Okay.
And really for those teachers, they've always kind of worked together.
Okay.
That's not a big change.
Got it. And so that gap assessment is sort of happening at the grade level in
Yeah.
terms of where things need
Yeah.
to go. Okay. Got
Yep. Yep. We've looked at the reading standards, the language standards, and kind of said, you know, especially the language standards. All right, humanities are going to take this.
it. Mhm.
Reading's going to take that.
Mhm.
And we've even talked about some of them being like, well, maybe, you know, some of the stuff math could take, some of the stuff science
Sure.
could take. You know, particularly around vocabulary, where it comes to like Greek and Latin roots.
Sure.
Like maybe some of those vocabulary that can be taught in math or science.
Got it.
But we've kind of figured out like, all right, humanities, reading, what doesn't have a check mark next to it yet?
Yeah.
And then kind of figuring out, all right, let's divide and conquer.
Got it. Do you envision that the iReady sort of year over year will be fairly telling as well to see if there's specific areas, or you don't, not necessarily?
No, because iReady
Okay.
is strictly reading.
Oh, fair. Okay.
It's not.
Yeah,
it
got it.
doesn't. It really doesn't.
It's not getting to
incorporate-
the standard
it's-
level,
it's
or
not,
yeah.
It's not to the standard level
Okay.
of the ELA.
Fair. Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Maybe other like vocabulary,
Mm.
but that's I don't think
Okay.
that's gonna be teased out in iReady.
No, that's helpful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Other questions or comments? Yes, Brendan.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, kudos to you and the staff. I actually do really appreciate, from my background, educational background, that you're teaching writing in science, because it's really important trait to have. When you first presented this back in the spring, I was like, how are 5th graders going to sit through an hour-long class? Like, 'cause, I mean, adults can't sit through an hour-long like meeting without, you know, drifting off. So I guess to confirm, you're finding students are engaged for that
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
I mean, you were saying probably
Yeah.
closer to 55 minutes or
Yeah,
so, but
yeah. We do find, you know, the kids can do an hour.
Okay.
They can do an hour. And as I said, some of the periods aren't the full hour. You know,
Sure.
most days, at least 2 are. Most days are 3. 3 of the 4 are, and there's usually one that's kind of broken up. So there are plenty of opportunities for kids to move, but also, you know, we have, you know, all of our, we have one first-year teacher in grade 5. You know, our other new teachers in grade 5 are experienced teachers. But the majority of our 5th grade teachers have been 5th grade teachers for a lot of years. They've been here, they've been at Woodland since I've been, you know.
Sure.
So they know 5th graders, and they know like, all right, let's get up and move, or
Fair
hey,
enough.
let's break things up, or I'm losing their attention, I need to, you know, adjust my lesson. So they're really intuitive that way. So as I think all teachers are.
Sure.
You know, there you know, lots of first grade teachers who plan a 20-minute lesson, and 3 minutes into it, those kids got a
Hit
bad
that
case,
reset button.
bad case of the wiggles,
Yeah.
and you gotta change your plan.
Okay.
So, 5th grade teachers are doing the same.
Awesome. And I do agree with your daughter that 15 minutes of recess is just not enough.
I wish we could. Yeah, I wish we could figure out a way to increase
I know.
it.
I'm giving you a
But
hard time.
something has to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, well, thanks again for coming in. Really appreciate your time, the comprehensiveness of the report to us. And,
Glad to help out.
If there's any other updates as the school year goes on, actually one quick one. When will you do the iReady or like those kind of evaluations?
Yeah, we did the Fallout iReady as part of our benchmark diagnostic at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year. We'll re-administer in January, late January,
Yeah.
early February. We do the second round, and then we do it again in late May, early June.
Okay. Perfect. Great.
Oh, can I ask another question?
Yes.
Were report cards late this year?
Nope.
I feel like they used to like around Thanksgiving. It's always been, and like some parent-teacher conferences happened after the report cards. That's consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, it
Well,
felt like, I don't know
that
why.
was a little different.
Okay.
Especially at Woodland, I
Yeah.
try and get early, but
I was just curious.
my principal colleagues have figured me out, and
Okay. Denied.
they
Yeah,
got, yeah.
Okay.
the negotiations that go around parent-teacher.
For the nights,
conferences,
for picking the nights?
Yeah,
Got it,
because
okay.
we have to have them all on different
Sure.
nights. So we have to sit in a room like this and
Fight it up.
fight it
All
out.
right.
I want this thing, I want
Got
this.
it.
I usually try and like pick the nights in the spring the year before, but they figured that out, and so
Yeah.
Craig gave me the last pick in the draft this year. And so I ended up with some later conferences.
I was just curious. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Tim.
Moving on then to our technology department update. Miss Angelini.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you? It's nice to see you all. Thanks for having me. So if it's okay with you, I'll start off with a really quick overview of, I'll go grants, technology, a little bit of media. My intent is to go quickly through this, but if you do have any questions, I certainly will answer. I do want you to know I am going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the people that I have the pleasure of working with, because what you're seeing within the technology accomplishments over the 4 years that I have been in the department has been truly, I would say, a testament to the teamwork and collaboration that has, I would say, blossomed with the advent of new staff that have been afforded to us by this committee. So I do want to thank you for that. It has allowed each person that's within that committee to shine and show their true strengths. So I would like to highlight them just a little bit, very short, with their names and whatnot, if you don't mind. So the tech department would like to thank the school committee for their teamwork and collaboration. The feedback that you have offered us as a team has certainly allowed a positive impact across our ability to meet and respond to the growing needs of the tech department. I would like to say the following tech team members have been extremely instrumental in the accomplishments that you see before you in the packet that was shared with you. Kevin Cullen, who is Network Everything, he's, I would say, my closest confidant in terms of working on tech initiatives. We started off 4 years ago together, growing and trying to be proactive in what the department would need to be able to respond to growing tech needs. In particular during COVID, it was quite challenging. I am not afraid to admit my technology skills were not why I was put in this role. It was for my organizational leadership skills. But if you could see the image of Kevin somewhere in the wizarding world, off-site, and I'm sitting down on the floor trying to update a laptop for the first time. It was quite comical. Yet we got it done, right? And I was the runner, and as moms and dads were coming in to pick up devices, I'm handing to them, and I'm like, booyah, I did that, you know? So I always say, never be afraid to let somebody see you try to do something. So over the 4 years, in terms of being able to develop the ability for Kevin to do his networking proactively. Why did that happen? Because we got a technician. Why did that happen? Because you gave us a hardware manager. And why is more patching happening and preventative network management happening? Because you gave us that second technician in July. So thank you so much. It's made quite a difference. Dan Nelson, jack of all trades, besides being a classroom computer teacher dealing with Project Lead the Way, he has been very instrumental in doing summer tech work with the students, which I have to say, 2 of our technicians that were hired are products of Dan Nelson's classroom. So it's a testament to the Milford Public Schools. I also want to thank Sarah Boyle, who is a tech integration specialist. Sarah is Google certified, extremely talented in terms of working with teachers to diversify accessibility to instruction utilizing technology. She also developed a beautiful pathway this summer. It gives teachers an opportunity to make choice based on the district subscriptions that we offer. So there are 3 pathways that take each teacher through the subscriptions that we have, and so they can learn how to do them better. The best part about it is it was created so teachers could actually achieve 10 PDPs by completing each of the pathways. So it gives them an incentive to want to do it as well. And it's asynchronous, so it's up on our site and they can do it whenever it accommodates them, and it's not going to go away. So if they didn't have time this year, they can do it next year. We also have Ryan Nestor, who's new to the group. He's a tech integration specialist as well. Lisa Beyer, student information systems manager. David Maloney, who's the hardware manager. And again, Edgar Hinton and Jonathan De Silva, who are the tech technicians. So the combination of all those people are what you're seeing in terms of the successes that are within this plan. So what you're going to see within the plan that you're looking at is the district improvement plan accomplishments as outlined by what we said we were going to do. Okay. I would also like to shout out to Erica. Thank you for all the many years of taking all my notes. My chatter and my improvement plans are nasty. So thank you for that. I had long ones. Remember Erica? Stacy? Yeah, I should apologize to you for that publicly. Many, many notes caused by me, I'm sure. I also wanted to thank Melissa Bullock for working with us this year to manage the website. So I think I've got just about everything. And the last people I want to thank is the District Technology Steering Committee for helping develop this plan, and also for developing a very strong template for the 2024, 2020 X, whatever they decide as I move along into something else. So that last number will be decided by the district tech committee in the future. So there's a very strong draft in place, so whoever takes over will have a really good base to look at, okay? So if you look at grants or the tech updates, anything that's in green, since I had last seen and spoke with you in January of 2023, those are some of the highlights and accomplishments from January 2023 to present date. Alrighty, so we'll just boogie right to the grant. So if you look at the grant page where it starts with February 2023 supporting SEL behavioral, and all the way down in green, those are the grants that were successfully accomplished from January to present. Does anyone have any questions on any of those?
All right.
Okay. And then underneath that, you'll see there are pending grants that were written, and we're just waiting to see if we got a yes or a no, okay, on those. Same thing if you go to the next page where it's on entitlement grants. Any entitlement grant below in the green is new. And then the pending entitlement grants were written, and we're just waiting to hear the outcome. You can see the total of grants, whether it's competitive, entitlement, or targeted, totaling that figure over the 4 years that I have had the pleasure of working in this role. Also, there are other people who do a really good job writing grants for the district as well, and these are the ones that I was aware of. So the two in green underneath happened since the last time we spoke. Does anyone have any questions on any of those or clarifications needed on programming associated with? Okay, super. The next piece is the district tech plan. So this is very specific to what the steering committee outlined. So what you see are all of the things that have been accomplished. So anything in green, again, is a highlight of what has been accomplished since we last spoke. Two things I would like to highlight that had happened in the fall here. The department was able to purchase and engage with something called Charisma, which is a vulnerability scanning program. And this will allow the department, particularly the network engineer or manager, he's not really an engineer, but manager, very well suited in this, as well as the technicians. So there's cross-training happening between Kevin Cullen, Edgar Hinton, and Jonathan. So all three of them, every Wednesday, they take a look at new reports. So instead of a one-time look at what might or might not be going wrong, it's a weekly look-see now. So we're taking a very preventative posture because of the increase in staffing. So again, I'd like to thank the committee for that. The other thing that we just were able to purchase is something called Vanahai. I'm sorry, I don't even know how to say it. Kevin's probably laughing because I know he's probably watching. It's software for penetration testing. In the past, it was a one-time shot. What this is going to allow is on-demand testing, which is going to allow the technology team to better position Milford Public Schools to be a little bit more cyber secure with patching, checking to see if anyone's trying to get into the network, and then respond before that were to happen. So those are two highlights that I really wanted to let you know are going on just recently. So they're doing the training right now as they can in between ticket responses. There were a lot of things that are important, like battery backups, access point improvements or replacements or new installations. One thing that I think is really awesome as well is there's a development of something like a sandbox where the technology people can, while everything is happening in real time, go play over here and try to make something work before they put it into the system. So that's something that was just purchased or is being purchased. We're in the process of purchasing that right now. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit moving forward. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Sorry, Nancy, which application is the sandbox for?
I beg your pardon?
The sandbox is for?
It's like a lab server, a virtual server set, so they can work on things trying to identify problems without, well, turn the button and see what happens.
It's for the
It's
server
like
itself, thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
they're doing
thanks.
it off, yeah. The standard things are happening in terms of Chromebook distribution. Every summer, the summer tech team is working diligently to bring onboarding new Chromebooks and getting them ready and distributed. The plan we have is 369. That's working out really well. So each student, when they get it in grade 3, they keep it till grade 5. It follows them from grade to grade. Same thing in 6 and same thing 9 through 12. So we're still maintaining that routine right now. Again, just highlighting, I just want to highlight some things. So standardly purchasing flat panels, that's the biggest thing now is there's a lot of legacy devices, right? So think about Woodland. Woodland is what, like Craig, 8 years or so?
7.
7 years. So all of those things are all in at the same time. So, you know, what we have is developing like a legacy projector document that principals can look at. So the technicians this summer went through, made some recommendations per building about what would be your most legacy device, and you might consider budgeting to replace those in the upcoming budget cycle. So that's something the technicians worked on this summer, okay? And I think another thing that's really important is something that's happening between the tech integration specialists. They are taking a look at the district subscriptions and doing, over the course of this school year, a usage study to see what subscriptions are actually being used. Is it a value add to keep, or should we talk about removing? So for the FY26 budget cycle, there will be data that people can use to make those decisions as, I would say, as ESSER funding depletes. All right, so that data will be in place, so they'll be able to use it next year for your cycles of budgeting. I already talked about what Sarah did with the professional development for staff. So I think that's really a nice, lovely thing, and all the things that she's done over the past 4 years are, many of the asynchronous trainings are up on our website for staff to access as well. And it very much included during the Mentor Day presentation, so the new teachers have access to all of that before they start their school year, so they can look at everything and get a little bit of knowledge before they hit the ground running. All right, so those are some of the highlights that I'd like to share with you. If you have any questions, please feel free. This is my swan song, so my last time with you.
As always, very comprehensive. Any questions from the committee? Not seeing anything from our technology side, subcommittee to add. I know that you've given periodic updates anyways.
Yeah, no, I think
Those
they're
been good, so.
they're in a very good spot, and
Yeah.
I'll just kind of echo what Nancy said when we supported adding that additional person to the staff. It really it takes your department we're seeing this with facilities. It takes your department away from just reacting to problems into being proactive, and that penetration software is a big deal. It's, in the past, you would pay a lot of money to pay somebody to come in with their laptop and try to break your network. And it costs so much, you do it once every 2 to 3 years. Now they can run it constantly, and if a new threat comes out, which is like every 36 hours, they can program it and rerun it again. So the ability to be able to do that kind of stuff is important, because I think districts are still under attack across the country in general as cybersecurity gets even tighter, and it's to be able to be proactive yourself is very helpful, because it doesn't take much to collapse an entire network, unfortunately, and it's happened in districts just in Massachusetts just this year. So stuff like that's, it's critical that we have a department that can do that kind of stuff now. So I think that's very important that we've supported that and continue to.
Excellent. You know, as technology has evolved and the need has evolved, obviously all of that infrastructure that we're putting in place, our budget increases every year. Do you recall how much our budget increased this past year for technology-wise, like both of you? And I'm just kind of curious, do we expect another jump as, again, as Matt was just saying, that we're adding on staff, but we're also adding on infrastructure to ensure our network is secured. And with that comes additional funding needed to create that.
Well, working with Nancy, really the big tech increase this year is the ESSA grant move back into operating, because that closes June of 2024. So we literally went through the ESSA grant and moved all of those required expenses into our operating budget. So that was an increase, obviously. And
Which we planned for.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something that
Right.
was discussed
Yes.
Yep.
several years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
That should
So
be-
outside of that, it was
Yeah.
just the 5% on top of the tech budget, outside of whatever Nancy might be asking for as new expense
Yeah.
initiatives.
And I just look at it, when you look at all those highlights, and without going through them all, there was a lot of value added to your technology department, and just a testament to staying within the budget and not seeing a huge, in a sense, double-digit increase, considering everything that has been accomplished and is required too.
Just add that one piece. No, Nancy, you mentioned how your team went through buildings and gave people ideas of what legacy stuff was. When you think about Woodland, 7, 8 years old, that makes every one of those projectors roughly 3 years past what they should be, right? So in one sense, you could sit there and you could go and just replace all these projectors and get this massive budget item. Or the way they're taking the approach sounds like, let's start planning some every year, because we don't want to get to a place where Woodland has 20-year-old projectors and they all start just falling off the ceiling and dying. But we don't want to buy 70 new TVs at the same time either. So taking that stepped approach, I think, is going to make the budget a little bit easier to manage and swallow when we're sitting here going, we're going to replace 10 to 15 a year instead of whole floors.
Right.
And that goes all the way across from TVs, projectors, laptops, Chromebooks, document cameras, everything. Yeah.
The good thing about, let's just do, that's a really good point, Maddie, is the document cameras. Like Sarah said, hey, these are starting to go. So we were able to fund some of that at the end of the year. So the document cameras were replaced at Woodland. So there's things like that, how everybody works together and say, hey, look at, we're starting to notice that. So that's the teamwork that kind of happens. And it isn't only in the tech department. The teachers have been fantastic. Teachers, I love teachers. Teachers are fantastic, because they're the eyes and the ears, and then they share what's going on, and then we try to say, oh my goodness, we need to listen to what's happening, listen to their viewpoints, and then say, how can we proactively respond to that to make sure what's happening now currently works, what's going to happen in 5 years is going to work, without anyone having to be reactive anymore like we did, I would say, 4 years ago. So I think teachers have been really, really very, very, I would like to call them our teammates, because without them, we wouldn't exactly know what's happening. So it's always that give and take, and that's how you get better, right? Because we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so you have to listen more. And that's what we have gotten really good at, is listening to what other people are saying and taking the feedback and trying to get better at what we're doing in the best interests of the students and the staff. So we got to take care of the staff so the staff can take care of the students, is the way I look at it.
Yes, Megan.
I just wanted to commend you, Nancy, for sort of the energy which you brought to this very unique position. I think, the tenacity with you went out to write all these grants and obtain all this money for the district has just been so incredibly helpful. Certainly to take on a technology role in the middle of a pandemic, no one saw that coming. And I can say as a parent, like, we had an issue and the next day the Chromebook was fixed. Like, the team was amazing. And so I think about all the challenges that you had to encounter in your time here. Just kudos to you. You'll certainly be very missed, but thank you for coming back to share all this. I know you'll be around for a few more months, but we appreciate everything you've done in this
Till
role.
July, I'll be here. Working hard. I'm still here 6:30 in the morning.
Thank
I'll get
you.
it done. But I have to say, all those wonderful things, I really appreciate that you take the time to say that. It means a lot. By the time I leave, it'll be close to 34 years. So before I exit, I want to thank each and every one of you. You have made my time here very pleasant. There's been a lot of challenges that I have encountered, but they were all worth it when I walk down the hall and I see the students. So thank you very much. In particular, I think committee members, I always say, I used to say this to Michael Walsh. I said, oh, thank you so much. We come in here, we are nervous. I don't care what anyone says. You come in here and you're nervous, and you always, you shouldn't feel nervous coming to talk to the coach, right? And I just want to say thank you. Whenever I come here, you're always so very nice. You ask questions to me, and I really feel like it's always done in the best interest of helping the department and the people within my department get better. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I think it's very important. It's a really hard job that you have. And I just wanted to thank you for being kind to the tech department. I know I speak on behalf of the people that I have the pleasure of working with upstairs. They feel very supported by you, as well as the central office. They've been nothing but supportive of the tech department, and I just really want to publicly say thank you on behalf of the team who isn't here. And again, I want you to understand, I would not have been able to accomplish this without the people that I have listed. I wish I could have had them come with me. I tell them they're in the wizarding world, and I'd like, like the Wizard of Oz, the guy when the dog pulls the curtain. I want you to go up and pull the curtain so you see who is doing all of this behind the scenes as well, because they're really important. They do great stuff. So that's it. Anybody have anything else?
Questions, Robin, please.
Just
Rob?
the last thing I wanted to say was, listening to your presentation and just how you're giving credit to your team. It's so nice to hear this, and I just want to highlight the number in here. So we're talking about $13 million worth of grants, and so just the fact that I don't want us to gloss over that. That's a substantial amount of money, and so I appreciate your presentation. Very much appreciate the credit you're giving to your staff, because I think that's very important. But I also just want us to acknowledge and celebrate the work you've done for the district. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. So coming from you two, you're now very special. I had the pleasure of teaching you as well.
A couple years ago.
It's good stuff, right? It's good stuff. I get to see full circle of students, and what's better than that, to see, how successful you have become, and you should be proud, So that's my pleasure, is seeing that and helping people get to where they want to be. So I leave here very joyful knowing that, I think, hopefully I had said this to Dr. Mack when I slid my letter across the way. I said, hopefully I did more good than not, and I will leave on that note.
Thank you. Are you staying around for the website update?
Oh yeah,
too?
I was just.
You are
yeah,
with that.
I
part.
will if you want me
Good?
to.
No? Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you're part of that. So, any
Sure.
other questions in regard from the technology side? And I guess as we move on to the website too, I hope that before July we can
She'll
have
be
you
back.
win one
She'll be
more
back.
time. Exactly. So we'll
At least one more
reserve.
time.
Not getting away that
Well,
easy.
it's too early for goodbye right now. So too early.
Will you go quiet in the night?
Yeah. All right. So no other questions on the technology, the grants. So we'll move on to the website.
Sure.
So Matt, you wanna take it?
Yeah, I can take that. So I'll just remind everybody what we're doing with the website. So the overarching goal of this project was to enhance the appearance, the efficiency of basically information access to everything that has to do with the district, as well as to try to give a bit of a better platform for us to start sharing more information like class offerings and all that stuff. So we met with Final Sight, who is the project who is running this build. Final Sight, just as a quick background, Final Sight purchased Blackboard. They're making Blackboard go away, which is what every company who purchases an tech piece does. So they offered I'll just shorten up the whole discussion. They basically offered to carry on the cost with Blackboard and to, for no cost, bring our stuff over to their new platform. So we met with them last week, was the project manager from their team, and they basically gave us a timeline of what can be expected. So we have a couple open items I noticed that we're already pretty well underway with, doing their intake form, which is things like colors and the URL assignments and logos and stuff like that. And then an initial site map as well. And I know was some discussions after that meeting that the goal, I believe, is going to take an even smaller section of the website group. It's probably going to be Nancy, Michael, I believe, and Melissa. They're going to nail down the site map for like the major site, which I think we identified as the high school. And that's going to be used essentially as a template going forward for all the other sub-websites. And the idea behind that basically was the high school has the major amount of pieces, and as you step down in schools, you can start stripping away pieces that the others don't need. So it'll give a way to make more of a unified look across all the different schools in the district. So that's a bit of a next step. And then we also did start discussing, exploring a few different things. Final Site does offer something like a mobile app, for example. So we're still in the, I guess, discovery phases of that. That's a second piece that would be like a phase 2, and that would have a cost to it. So obviously we're trying to figure out where that fits and if it needs to fall in line with the new discussion in January or not. But some exciting things about the mobile app is you can customize the information, so we could essentially tailor the most accessible stuff, lunch menus, contact stuff. You can do push notifications, and we can put it on an app that makes it easier for families to get to, so they don't have to go to the full site for everything. But again, that is a separate phase piece, and that would be after this project is done. And then I believe, I don't recall the date, I already forgot it, but it does seem like we could have this up and running by the end of the winter. It was 14 to 16 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
By the time we get our paperwork done, obviously that gets dumped into a queue for engineering, and when they have time, they can roll it out. But I don't think we really have a hard line on the date. I think it's more important that we clear it up.
Do we want to roll it out this year, or do you want to wait till
Yeah.
July 1st and really,
Yeah.
so people aren't dealing with new systems midway through the year? That's
Yeah.
something we just need to discuss.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. I think everybody's in agreement on the team that it's more important to make sure that we get out the clutter and reorganize and get it right the first time, because I know Final Site will tell you that every 2 to 3 years you revamp your website entirely. That's insane. That's a lot of work. So let's get it done now, and we could run this for another 5 to 7 to 8 years or something like that. So I think that's all I have on that. Anything?
Yeah, no, I think I think the biggest thing too is, and I like to highlight it because we learned it from you, is three clicks or less is what we're trying to get. 3 clicks or less.
People
so
are
that's like our motto in our head.
People are more impatient now than ever before. Too much time on a website, and they'll give up.
Right. But no, I think you covered just about everything we had talked about. And also, I mean, I think intuitive too. We're trying to make it more intuitive for the user. So it's not like, oh, you have to like study to use it. You want to just be able to get in there and kind of know what you want and be able to find it quickly.
Yeah, and I will add to that too, and note that I think the focus is going to be on mobile friendly. I know it's a desktop website, and everybody knows that, but Michael brought it up quite a few times. Nobody's looking at websites on their desktop anymore. So usually they translate, and their tool, as they showed us the demo of the platform we were looking at in the template, it does translate, but the goal is to look at everything from a mobile lens first, and then we'll I think we'll back it out from there. But the good news is these newer platforms, they're very seamless. They almost don't build them for just desktop anymore, so I think we'll be good in that sense anyway.
Open up to questions or comments. Go ahead.
Sorry, Matt, did you say the mobile application would have a cost?
Yes, that is a separate piece, but it sounds like it's almost a front end tool. We have to have the website done first, and the app points in that direction.
Got it.
But it is a separate piece, a separate project team. We don't have a cost on it yet. I think we're
What
going
I'm
to
seeing
discuss that.
from
But
just talking to Kevin is this cost seems relatively reasonable.
Okay.
That's the direction we need to go in.
So we
I
would
think
build
we
that
gotta-
in for
I think
next
we gotta
year.
see, I think we gotta see like how accessible is the site we're developing. and
Right.
Is
it
what's
necessary?
added with the app or not.
Got it. Okay.
So that's a whole nother discussion once we get that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would add that if you ever had a chance to talk to somebody whose school system does have an app,
Yeah.
they have nothing but good things to say.
Yeah,
So, which I have
accessibility.
just reached out, just
yeah.
different states and all that, so certainly, yeah, fewer people, as Matt said, fewer people going to their desktop, more going to their phone, and now even more going to that application
Fair.
side of it. So certainly, as we build, I think that, and as even this project has evolved, where, I was like, hey, our website's dated, and it was hard to get on, move through. Now, when you start talking to other districts or other parents, like, oh yeah, we have an app, and that's how all that information is downloaded through the app. So that's kind of the nature of where we're at too, right? Where everything is very app-based. So I would encourage us to hopefully go down that line too.
Yeah, and one of the other driving factors there too, and we talked about this pretty substantially, is Facebook, it's Twitter, it's emails and robocalls, and if you can get an app out there and you can push the notifications, you wake up in the morning and just pick up your phone and you already know what's happening with school, as opposed to what platform do I have to check it. It would be ideal to get this sorted out to a point where everything is just go to the website, go to the app.
Right.
And that's part of the goal too, just in the bringing the efficiency to the whole process of getting the information you're looking for your students.
And Matt, I apologize if you said this. Did we do an RFP, or was it because we were going to go with Blackboard, this is who bought Blackboard?
So they just happened, I know we had a discussion about doing this, and we put money in the budget. They approached Kevin Cullen and said, this is what we're doing. We want to get rid of Blackboard, and this is the deal we're giving. And it seems like a lot of districts are jumping on it, and it literally is a zero cost. We've been paying a certain amount of money every year for the website. Basically, we carried on with that same process, and they said, we'll migrate you to our stuff if you stay with us.
And we're comfortable with what's...
Yeah, they've done some
great.
really, really good websites.
Awesome.
Hopkinton's one of them. We saw a whole handful.
Great.
A lot around the city, too. They're really
Just the
good.
diligence on that side to
And
be
their-
sure
and
it's
their
what we
build-
want to
yeah,
do.
so their build process is very similar to what other outfits were offering, but it's free versus anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000.
Right.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if we went through that process to know, Kevin. Is the question I was asking.
Yeah, I reached out to a few companies.
You did,
It was
okay.
and then they stepped forward and said, hey, this is kind of what we're doing. It was just a timing thing more than anything else.
Got it. That's
They
helpful.
kind of lined up.
That's the same question.
And that was
just from that standpoint.
That was done last winter too, right? Because we set
Yeah,
aside $50,000 in budget with
We were starting to look at
the
things
knowledge
during
of the
the
cost.
winter and the spring, and there's a few places we kind of said, hey, what's the process, what's the cost, what's the timeline?
That's helpful. Okay.
And there was a lot of similarities between companies in terms of the bigger companies that were doing this work. So
Great.
we felt pretty comfortable. It's a well-known name.
No, that's great.
They do a lot of work across the country, and they're really well regarded.
Okay. I just want to be doing it again in a year. That's all. I was
Yeah,
trying
no,
to
just
avoid.
on that line, hold on one second, Greg. Were we already in contract with Blackboard Final Site?
Yes.
And I guess, so we already were, and how long is this new contract for?
Do you know the answer to that? I think was it 5 years?
I don't remember.
So they actually,
it's fine.
so that's not entirely the best way to look at it. They bought the company, the Blackboard company,
Yeah.
that did the website and our communication systems.
Yeah.
And we just continued on with the new kind of mother company.
So it wasn't a requirement where we needed to go through and get new quotes or anything like that? It doesn't meet that threshold where we're required to get 3 quotes?
I wasn't involved in the process, so
Because it was a company we already had an existing relationship with it. Although they were bought out, it was still the same product.
Okay, that's all right, so, okay, it doesn't, yeah, so I was just curious from that standpoint, so, Megan, anything else on that, RFP and all that stuff? Greg?
Yeah, I just have a different sort of question. I think we all know that the website is only as good as the folks on the back end that are keeping it current. Any sense of how much time this is going to be on our school folks to keep this thing updated and keep it the way that I guess we want it to be?
I think that all depends on the frequency of data change, right? I don't know necessarily how much things evolve on the website. The process to get it going could be a little more substantial, which is why I think there's going to be 3 of you trying to sort that piece out.
Yeah.
But once we set the standard of this is what we do have up there and this is what we don't, I guess it depends on how quickly things rotate, calendars and daily announcements. It all depends on, and it may come down to if we leverage this more as the central point of communication for families, it may come down to it that we need to add somebody potentially to the IT staff to be an actual webmaster. I know right now, Melissa Bullock's, she's helping with that piece.
Right.
It might make sense to have somebody come in, or something I've seen even back in my college days. It may make sense to leverage a technology class and a web design class, and as part of their duties and part of their learning is actually doing this kind of stuff hands-on real time. And it gives them an opportunity to understand web development and changes, but it really depends on how frequently the district wants to post and change.
Right. Well, if I'm thinking, I guess, of the app especially. if that's something that's like we're pushing notifications out, and it seems like that's really current, up-to-date stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably no different than you post something to Twitter, right? It's going to be a whole tool to manage that. I'm sure that is part of that phase that they said they have to bring into the whole
Okay.
app development team. I'm sure that they would outline more of how that is managed and run. There was some training pieces that she shared with us, I believe, too,
Yeah.
just for website management and managing the final site platform. So whoever does end up responsible for the day-to-day activities will probably have to go through that piece.
Okay.
And the last
Thank
piece
you.
on that, the other thing we always
There's a
have to be
lot of
cognizant of is the multiple languages in the community.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure whatever we're doing from a communication perspective, which is why sometimes we have multiple platforms, is, and unfortunately, like a lot of these tools are not set up for Spanish and Portuguese and other languages, across the board, and it's not that consistent too. And that's something we have to look at.
Yeah, and I will say that one of the first things Tim Kearney, who's sitting on this group as well, showed me when we sat down is the Hopkinton site and how quickly he could flip it from languages. And that's a final site feature. So when we get there, it was a box in the corner and it was 28 languages or something like that. And he could change, and it translated, unlike what Blackboard does now, it translated the entire site, not just certain headers and categories. So,
Which is more seamless than like you said.
absolutely, yeah.
Rob?
So all this sounds really great. Thinking about, again, the mobile app, do we think notifications through that would take the place of talking points at all?
I would
That's-
say no.
That's unclear, but I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would say that this is more of a district announcement piece, and I don't know if stuff like that may integrate in the future. We haven't really talked, other than knowing that they have an app and that it has these potential features. Because it's not something that's part of the website build, we haven't gone too far down the road on that one. But I mean, that's probably a different discussion, because I know I have 2 kids in the district and I have 3 different apps to follow. So
Yeah. Yep, and
reeling that in
yeah.
someday might be nice, but I don't know that this would be the thing that would take it
And
over.
that's kind of what I was thinking, is even at schools that are using talking points, there are multiple apps, but just also thinking, I know sometimes I'll get an email, like from the superintendent, and then I'll get the exact same message from the principal through talking points. So it does seem like some of the messages maybe could come through the web, especially if that's, but we'll have to just see what happens, yeah. Don't see it, yeah, yeah.
It's just sending out the multiple
Making
ways
sure.
to get the
Yeah,
information out to as many people as possible.
yeah, fair
I
enough.
guess that's more of a process
Yep.
discussion
Okay.
on the back end too, but this app is more than likely going to be the same as website controlled, whereas I think talking points, any teacher can use it to the tool as they need it. So I would not think that it would do that, but
Okay.
it may integrate with talking points for all I know. We'll find out.
Any other questions on website development? So, I guess, so what next phases or next milestones that we can expect?
So I think the next step is going to be, well, first we have to complete the forums and get them over the final site so that they can officially put us in the queue to have this stuff start to get built. And then there's going to be the design of the probably the high school page first. And that I don't know when that actual meeting is going to happen. I feel like I can't
I
find
want to say December 18th.
I can't find my calendar. I'm like, I feel like I just recently saw.
December 18th is the full meeting, and we're
That's what it is,
we're in
okay.
the midst of trying to get the
Yeah.
subcommittee
Right, yeah.
to determine
meet
when can we
before
meet
then.
prior to the 18th to do some concrete work. Melissa has already started to, for example, she reached out to principals, and making sure, hey, take a look at your website. Do you like your color codes? Do you like your emblem? This is the time to change if you'd like to change. So if someone said, yes, I really like I'm going to use Woodland. Timmy, I like the way it is. Boom, Melissa already uploaded that into the form. So as people are saying, yes, I still like it, or hey, you know what, I'd like to make a tweak, that's what's going to happen. So that email went out, I think, like Monday. So Monday or Tuesday, somewhere around there to the principals. So.
That's probably the majority of the heavy lifting. They literally want a site, and when I say a site map, I mean a flow chart of every page and every menu put into an Excel spreadsheet. So it's intense. Actually, I was talking to Michael about this, and he was actually looking for a tool that may auto dump. Pull it from the website into a spreadsheet, and then you clean up the spreadsheet. But I think that might have been more of a pipe dream than reality.
Cross, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, but the technology subcommittee gets those updates, so you can come back to the board periodically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forever.
Michael and I are part of the team on the website, so we can bring those as we.
So we know, without having to finalize milestones and stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. All right. Well, thanks again. We appreciate
You're
the
welcome.
website update. Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Matt.
having me.
Well, hopefully we'll see you again in a few months.
I'll be moving around. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you again. Thank you again for your kindness.
Night, Nancy.
All right, then, moving on to our budget timeline review. Basically, just want to put this on there just as budget season's going on. We have our upcoming meeting scheduled on that Saturday, January 6th. So just for everybody to kind of get eyes on the schedule, and just to remember the importance of January 6th. So, anything else to add on that from administration
I
side?
think so. I say that, and Kathy can kind of concur or have a different opinion, but so far I feel like the budget meetings with the principals and directors are going really well. We're right on schedule. I think we have a few more to do next week. After that, Kathy compiles all of our requests and information, and Kathy, Craig, and I meet and go through them and prioritize.
Yep.
And then, you get all the documents, but that's the top document that you see. So I think we're right on track.
I think we're early. I'd like to have it out before Christmas break, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
That's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say. Chris and I had a couple of conversations about the committee needing enough time to receive the budget request and process it before our first Saturday meeting. Chris actually questioned whether we should move it on, to the second Saturday, which is not traditional, but in talking with you, Kathy, you indicated that you'd have it before Christmas, so that gives us plenty of time to review. Differently from years past where we got it, either the day of or the Thursday prior, so this is big strides in my mind, so I really appreciate that
You
and,
bet.
the work of all the team involved. Good, yeah, and that was one thing, thanks for bringing that up, John, just trying to lock you in that time frame, just, because again, just looking at, I know that on
Hard
January
deadline.
4th, which is that Thursday before the 6th, Saturday 6th, we do have a meeting, so, some of our concentration will be on that meeting, and I don't want to deter from anybody's being able to look and give that document the time it deserves, so again, so just a little pressure on you that the sooner
No
we can get
pressure.
it, the better. I'm sure everybody will utilize their Christmas break time for that, so, yeah.
Counting on it
Yeah.
now,
So,
that's
but
it.
you feel that you could get it to us before
Well, we
Christmas
moved
itself?
everything up a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hoping to get that accomplished, so.
yeah, all right.
And we held firm with our dates,
Yeah.
so we're in good shape.
And do you foresee, so I guess two things, there is a meeting on the 21st, that's probably a little bit too ahead of schedule, just because everybody would be present there, we could
No,
get the
that's
hard
my
books
goal.
there.
That's-
If not, we would pick them up, actually, it would either be
It'll
that,
be the
yeah,
21st.
be the
That's
21st, so
when
we
they'll
can
be
pick up
ready.
those hard copies at that meeting. Perfect, all right.
That's it.
Question?
Not question, something I want to put out there, and I apologize because now that I think of it, it feels like this might be pushing on late. But I wanted to know if there was any interest in either adding to an upcoming meeting or maybe having the budget subcommittee meet in the sense of, in the past, we've never really had an opportunity as a committee to sit down and say, is there anything that we feel like we want to make sure lands on the list to discuss in that budget meeting? And I don't know if anybody has anything that they've necessarily been thinking about, whether it's upgrades to playgrounds that may or may not be there, or any other items that we've heard that we want to put attention to.
I would say just bring it to the meeting, you can email it during the course of that week and just.
Yeah, I mean,
We can add points of discussion. I don't know
Well,
how you feel about that. Kathy.
my thought
Well,
on that
my
was gonna be
thought
something
is-
like that, yeah.
My thought is, Matt, that, okay, so now you're gonna get our packets on the 21st, which will give you plenty of time to, as a committee, as a whole, to look through individually and see, okay, here's what is being asked, which might trigger thoughts for you. There's no reason why you can't collaborate your own ideas and thoughts and bring them on the 6th.
Okay.
That's plenty of time for us to move them into our budget and discuss them then.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Because that
So
first
it-
meeting isn't the end of everything. And I didn't know if it was
course.
more important to have all the ideas in the budget, in the packet for that meeting, but the outline you're giving actually makes a lot of sense, because if we have these ideas, maybe now is the time to start noting down what you're thinking.
Yeah, and I would
And
say,
then we can look through it.
The budget process were mild, that meeting is still in the first.
It
right
is,
around
it
the
is.
track.
Last year it went so efficiently, it felt like it was the entire race, but.
Well, there's a
There's a lot of.
feels that way for me.
Maybe not for you. All right.
But
No,
again,
you-
if the committee, any
Yeah.
committee member has something they want for it to go in the packet, I have no problem with accepting it prior to Monday, December 18th.
Perfect, okay.
And that's when I'll start to build the handouts.
And we would designate that as a committee, just like we do for the principals. We
Of
designate it
course,
as a committee request.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same process.
Yeah, best to do it individually than trying as a group. I know that, as you had just suggested, trying to get together, but.
No, it makes
sounds
more
like
sense to do it individually, yeah.
And then each person could defend their request. So, John?
No, I think it should stay the way it is, where the requests that come forth on the first Saturday are from the team, and then we can bring our own thoughts to that meeting, and there's plenty of time, as we just indicated. There's months between, our first meeting in January and the final, vote on what we propose for a budget, so, I think we're on the right track with that.
Yep, sounds good.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So, excellent, so we'll look forward to the packets on the 21st. Moving on, very good, thank you. All right then, so.
Sorry, Chris, can I just add
Oh,
one
yes,
request?
please, go ahead.
Okay, in addition to the binder, can we get the initiative sheet electronically?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. It's just really helpful to be able to, as we're adding, subtract, just kind of like real time.
Yep.
Can we get it not PDF?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's what I was thinking.
Because
Good
I was thinking that
clarification.
exact
Okay, that's
thought. Can we
fair.
just put an X where we're saying yes
That's
to so the
fair.
number
I
all
could do
matches?
the initiative summary as Excel
sheet, or
spreadsheet, but
that'd be
everything
great.
else will be PDF.
No, that's what I mean, just some,
Okay, sure.
I think I'm
Good
following, some form of
clarification.
tally
Oh,
spreadsheet.
So you,
yeah, I
yes,
got
yes,
it.
because it's moving and we like to know where we end the day, and so if we had that.
Yeah, last year, I
The
think we
young
got 3
people
different
wanna
numbers.
be able to play with the
No,
numbers.
Yeah.
and
It's
percentages.
I think that's important to be able to play with it, but I think it's also guarded that when you put things out there that are not in a PDF, that who knows who manipulates what and sends it forward. Not that we're gonna do that, but I think it's,
Just for us to know where
Yeah.
we've landed, John, is
yeah,
more than,
no, I
yeah,
agree.
for sure.
I think it is,
Meg keeps very
helpful
good
for-
track on that
helpful for the,
stuff.
yeah, Meg has always got
It's a
the tally
starting
going.
point.
All right, here we are, we're plus this and minus this.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome,
No, I
thank
agree
you.
with that, but I do
Yeah.
see the purpose of keeping
Yep.
the PDFs
Absolutely.
to, some.
Yep.
Within some communications.
Yeah. Anything else budget-wise? We're good. On a good timeline then. All right, so then we will move on to our report from our superintendent.
Yeah, so I have 2 updates for the committee. The first is a request for international student travel. And the reason I pulled it up here for this meeting is we're kind of getting back into the full international travel game again post-COVID. I think we had a foray into Canada, I think, last year, but that was the extent of it. So there's 3 trips, and these are pretty traditional. France, which runs from April 6th to the 19th. Italy, which runs from February 10th to the 23rd. Spain, which runs from February 16th to March 1st, and that's all in your packet. This is just picking up the exchange programs where they left off. I believe Portugal is not here because I think that the students are coming from Portugal this year, and then the travel will take place the following year. But I'm not certain of that. But these are the 3 trips that are proposed for February and April coming up.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Can we do that on one vote?
You could probably just, I voted together because you just voted
Yeah,
on international travel
Yep.
generally.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah, so looking for a
3 trips.
motion to accept the request for the international student travel to France, Italy, and Spain.
This is a quick question.
Yes, please.
Do the students fund this themselves, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this is funded by the individual students.
Okay.
They go on the trips.
Okay.
I just have a clarifying question also. Kevin, are the trips the same amount of time?
Roughly, I think they're within a day or 2 of each other. Sometimes it's based on air travel rates, schedules of the schools that they have their partnerships with, but they're within a day or 2. You gotta remember that February. They're all about 2 weeks.
Got it,
give or
okay,
take.
thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll make a motion to
All right.
approve the international travel as presented.
So a motion by Megan, second by Robin, and all in favor. That is unanimous. Great. Thank you, everybody, for that.
All right, so the second one is, we have 2 significant searches coming up. I think Nancy gave you a preview of one of them in her conversation tonight. We're looking to do searches for both the Assistant Superintendent for Business and HR and the Director of Technology, Grants, and Communication. what I want to do, I want to talk a little bit first about my thoughts on these, talk about timelines, and then kind of open it up to the committee for questions, if that makes sense. And I can send you the timeline document. I didn't do it ahead of time, and that was just an oversight on my part. And the dates may shift a little bit too as we really start looking at them. But one thing we found, and I've said this to the committee multiple times, is when we're doing administrative searches from pretty much the assistant principal level on up, the number of candidates is significantly fewer, and this is at all levels, than it has been previously. And it's just diminishing for a lot of different reasons. I think the work is getting more challenging. I think the public scrutiny is greater, and I think fewer people who are in the teaching ranks are making the jump into administration for a variety of reasons, and fewer people are jumping into teaching too. So it's kind of it's a trickle up effect. So I think we want to get these out early, and we're heading into what I consider the prime time of like recruitment season for administrative positions. I think it's really from actually like a little like after the holidays through probably the end of April, and then we head into the desperation phase from April to August to find somebody. Talking to other superintendents who have looked for technology positions and business positions, there's not a lot of candidates out there for either one, and we've experienced that with the technology searches over the last couple times we've done that. The business searches, I think, are even harder to some degree, and Kathy can second that, because you're on the listserv and you see people, posting, hey, I didn't get any applicants. So I think we're gonna let me talk technology first, and then I'll talk assistant superintendent for business and human resources, and then we'll kind of open it up to discussion. So for the director of technology, grants, and communication, I think we have a really successful model going right now. I think bringing somebody in who's a seasoned leader, who has, who's very organized, who understands how technology is used in the classrooms and the schools, is, I think a winning combination. And we have, now, we didn't necessarily, we had good people in place when Nancy started, but we have a bigger team and a very strong team now. I think we're in a very good place. And I think, all the credit in the world goes to Nancy for kind of developing the team, developing the systems. Megan, you said we had a Chromebook issue, got taken care of the next day. That's incredible customer service. And I don't think that happens in many school districts across the country with technology. So what I'd like to do here is I'd like to post the position next week, have it open for 10 days, like we typically do, so closing the week of December 18th. Conduct interviews the week of January 1st. Obviously, we're not going to do it on New Year's Day, but probably some of the days after that. And then with a goal of introducing the candidate to the school committee January 18th. Now, we've all done this many times, I think, maybe except for Brendan, where we've done searches, and it's never a linear line. You never start with, it just doesn't work that way. And I want to set an expectation right now, because we've done this enough times, and I think the market is very different right now, that I think that's our best intentions right now, and hopefully we have a fantastic candidate come January 18th to present to you and say, hey, this is the person we're going with. I'd love for you to meet this person. But that's kind of that's the goal and the timeline for that one. For the assistant superintendent for business and human resources, I know there's an appetite on the committee to talk about maybe splitting the position this coming year. And I wouldn't recommend that with the technology position, but I think it's worth a discussion to at least talk about it, whether if it's something we want to do, if there's an interest. That being said, I think the two groups of people we're going to get, and Kathy can agree or disagree with this, is somebody who's a sitting assistant superintendent for business or business manager in a smaller district who wants to take a step up, or somebody who's in a larger district, like a big urban district, who's like an assistant, business manager, assistant superintendent for business, that wants to take a lead role. I think those are the two kind of groups of people we're really looking for. Our advantage from a market perspective locally is we're a bigger district and we pay more for this position, so I think it's going to be appealing for some people. Kat, thoughts on that? Do you think that's pretty accurate?
I do. I think, though, that it's within the group of business managers in our MASBO group, is that They know that I've been in the role here for a very, very long time. So, you know, being here in Milford for 20 years, I think is gonna be very advantageous for us to go out. I think you're gonna see people that have an understanding, okay, so the sitting, retiring business manager, assistant superintendent for business, that's a great place to work. So I think that's gonna be very advantageous.
Yeah, it's a stable,
Yep.
Go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, I guess, a clarifying question. I had requested this on an upcoming agenda item, and there's a distinct difference between a school business administrator and assistant superintendent for business. Ms. Perry started as the school business administrator, correct me if I'm wrong, moved into the
Correct.
role of assistant superintendent because there was a need and a vacancy, and at the time you were the sole assistant superintendent. So I think the first question this group has to answer is, are we hiring an assistant superintendent, or are we hiring a school business administrator? And there's two different processes, there's two different hiring authorities on that, and what does this committee want to do? I was expecting to come here after our last meeting to figure out where we land with that clarification. And so I think I want to take a step backwards from what our superintendent.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation, John, would be to go with an assistant superintendent, because I think we're more likely to get the two groups of folks interested in applying that I just talked about.
That's great. So my recommendation would be to go with a school business administrator, because we open up to a large pool of candidates.
I guess on that lines, to John's point, when you look at from the assistant superintendent, are you suggesting that an assistant superintendent continue to keep it as the business and human resources?
That's something I'd like to discuss.
So, right, so, okay.
I mean, obviously, we were discussing all of it, but I think that's something that I
Yeah.
would say, like, my recommendation would be, let's keep the position as assistant superintendent, because I think it's gonna be more appealing for someone to step up. And I would say that, you know, if there's an appetite to split the position, I think that's something that, you know, obviously both things the committee can speak about and talk about and discuss, but I would recommend, you know, keeping an assistant.
You do agree we're gonna preclude a certain number of applicants?
I don't think so. I think
No?
people who are business administrators are gonna be looking to make that step up.
So you're saying they're already certified as superintendents?
They have the, what's the, it's.
I have both, so I
Yeah.
have my superintendent licensure. I had to get that when
In
I
order to
moved
make
in the
that
role.
move, but that's
I
not,
I didn't want to
it's not a
at the time.
requisite to be the school business administrator.
So I think if you had a school business administrator, from my point of view, you are opening it up to both candidates, similar to me. So I have both. You're gonna get both if you post it as a business manager, but you are limiting it if you post it as assistant.
So I don't know right out of the gate why we would want to preclude a certain number of candidates. Just, that's where I'm coming from right at this moment.
So what would help me in facilitating discussion around the title would be like the job description, which I have not yet seen. And so I'm a little precluded from jumping to what we want to call it until I see on paper. Not that I know most of what you do, Kathy, but it would be really helpful to have that detailed out as we move this discussion forward. And I agree we should do that sooner rather than later, just given how important this is.
Yeah, and on that topic, the difference between those two, what it would take if.
How they look if you did one versus
If you
the
had
other.
one versus, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
Yes, similar to that, and I apologize because it's probably just going to echo what you were saying. They're different licenses, right? And so I think we need to look at what the job is, how the different licenses map onto that, and then what is the role we're looking for in our district. I mean, one of the things, just looking at the school business administrator, it might be really nice to get somebody from a different industry who wants to come in and do this. And that, I don't know if that's what we want to do, but I think it's something to consider. So I don't know. I think looking at that, and then for the committee having those different licenses and just kind of saying, what is it that we need for the district, and then going from there.
Matt?
So I have two different questions. If we're looking at working this out right now, which I have really no problem doing, something to think about. What you said, Meg, makes a lot of sense, and I don't know if this is something that can be answered easily now or not, just in terms of off the cuff, how much of your day is spent managing business and how much of your day is spent in a traditional assistant superintendent role, whatever that even means.
It's one and the same.
I don't even know the difference.
Well, it's one and the same, honestly. And at the time when I moved into after getting licensure for the assistant superintendent. There was no other assistant superintendent. I was the sole person prior to Kevin coming on as the assistant superintendent for curriculum. So I needed to have that licensure at that time to manage business when the superintendent was out.
So the other thing, I think there's a middle ground here too. I think I wouldn't get caught up so much in the title. I know there's licenses attached to it, but I think by simply putting in the job description that we're looking for people with the school business administrator license and someone who is eligible and willing to obtain the superintendent assistant superintendent license.
My last question on that too, given what the regulations state about the different positions and the hiring authorities, and I know you just mentioned titles, if the title that's posted is assistant superintendent for business, does that gray the area of who's responsible for ultimately selecting this position?
No. No, so what John sent today was I have a different version of that I can pass out tonight. But basically it's, let me just pass it around.
I mean, we don't have to pass it around. It's General Law 71, Chapter, Section 41. We can all read it.
You have a different one?
I just have the DESI. I have a different version of what John's analysis was, slightly different.
My analysis was just General Law 71, Section 41. I mean, that's...
I pulled mine from the DESI site, and DESI kind of said this is what their thoughts were. The conclusion is the same.
That's all great, but that might be interpretation. Let's just read it, what the statute says. That's all. That's what I referenced.
Yeah. So you want me to pass the paper out or not?
I don't care.
Your call on that one. That's your call.
I think it's just good information because it's right on the DESI website. That I'm pulling this from.
Yeah.
I think it's just, and I pass that to you, you know, Matt, you can just come down. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of want to defer to Megan's point, was what are we trying to accomplish, really?
Right.
It would be helpful, I think, to see that laid out.
Yeah, my takeaway right now
I don't
is-
think we've quite defined that yet,
Right.
but we're trying to jump to a conclusion.
My takeaway right now is it'll continue the discussion at the next meeting. That next meeting should have the two different definitions, I guess you could say, of the roles, and we'll lay out whether it's just a business administrator or a business administrator with that superintendent's license, right? Am I clear on that? And I want to make sure that we get that clear message. And then whether or not, because I look at it too, that, you know, we're a $65 million plus, I don't even know what it'll be this year, you know, $1 million budget. I don't know too many companies out there that have a CFO / HR manager, right? Like, so those two aspects, and we're also, again, we're dealing with a $65 million budget. So anybody that we can get in here to look at that can deal with that level of expenditures, I probably not want to limit it to just someone that just has the superintendent's license, as someone I can't remember said, that we may need to look at another industry. I think it was Robin. So yeah, so I definitely would like to get a better idea of what we are looking to accomplish for that position.
I kind of want to echo that. I want to hear I mean, Kathy, a school business administrator has a license or a certification, correct? So tell me, what I want to hear is why we need somebody that also has a superintendent's certification, and what they're doing in this role that we need them to have that superintendency for. Because I mean, I've relied on Kathy since day one here, on her insight into finances and the historical happenings of the town and the institutional knowledge. I frankly, I look at Kathy's contribution to this district different and equally important is Craig's contribution to this district, and yours when you were the assistant superintendent. I'm just not seeing the overlap into the superintendency, so I'm all ears if you want to tell me. And I also look at our role and responsibilities as a school committee, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, I feel we need a strong business administrator. If they have a dual certification, all the better. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, the way I look at it is I think your smaller districts will have, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, generally, will have school business administrators. Larger districts will have assistant superintendent for business or finance. There's a few different titles that are out there. I see putting it at the assistant superintendent level as somebody who wants to promote up. I don't think the license for superintendent is necessarily critical. I think they could work to that. So I'm not necessarily looking to limit, and I think that's a good perspective. I'm not necessarily looking to limit the pool by doing that, because I think if someone has the school business license, they can pretty easily jump to the superintendent's license with an internship, and I think we could do that in the first, 20 weeks. Even if we appoint somebody initially as a business administrator and then shift them up to that title, but I think from the perspective of somebody out there, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, but I think it looks like you're stepping up to a bigger position. And I think that's the impression that it being posted that way is.
I think the part that I need clarified too is, and I'm sure I'm oversimplifying this greatly, but as you stated, you got the assistant superintendent license because there wasn't one, and you can't operate the district without one. We
At
have
that
one.
time,
We
because
have
there
one.
was no assistant superintendent.
So now, but we have two right now. So
Correct.
We will have one when you retire.
Correct.
So I think what I need to see is what the pressing need is to have a second assistant superintendent at all, if it's there, and I don't know that answer at all. I would be curious to have details on that.
I don't think there's a pressing need, Matt. What I think there is like, I want to give the perception that this is a significant job. I think Chris, you said $65 million
Right.
is a big amount of money.
Yeah.
It's a significant job. There's a lot of responsibility. It's going to be appealing for someone who's going to be looking to make a step up, not only in salary, but in the breadth of the responsibility.
Sure. I mean, when I think about the business world and what I've experienced too, a controller, for example, is not a CFO, right? But they are in a weird dotted line way kind of a CFO, because they're very much involved with boards and boards of directors and the CEO in terms of how the budget and that stuff operates, while they're still not necessarily running everything. And just like you said, $65 million and 800 employees. I mean, just on the surface of that, I definitely feel like we should have one person whose sole responsibility is running the budget, and one person whose sole responsibility that's a lot of people to manage.
Yeah.
I mean, in an HR standpoint, I can just think of all the things that come up, but that's obviously a side discussion, which you said. HR
Yeah.
really
and I
is a
think that's
good,
something we
is a
should
good
look at.
discussion to
I
have
think,
too.
based on the size of our district now,
Yeah.
it's something to consider. I don't want to get hung up on the title
Sure.
too much, because I think I don't know.
No, I think, I agree. We want to Megan's point, we want to define the role and what this committee feels they need from this position.
Good.
I'm good.
Your questions were in?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
So, yeah.
I would be echoing what everyone said, so.
Yeah, all right, so let's get some clarity on the position. I think also the clarity on why we would pursue one over the other, from that standpoint. And then, and is there any difference in the hiring process for each one too? So I think,
I think there's a distinct difference, so I
Right.
think we need to make it an agenda item
yeah,
at the next meeting or an
Yep.
upcoming meeting to quantify what we.
what we want and the direction we will go.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Thank you, well said.
No problem.
I just have
Yes, Rob.
a quick question, just kind of thinking about as we're moving forward to deciding which role we'd want it to be. Would there be a difference in how this individual is evaluated or what they're evaluated on based on which title and license they had, or would it be similar?
I think, if you take the HR piece out, like obviously that's a difference. But in terms of like responsibility for managing the budget, the day-to-day, purchasing, those types of things, I don't think there's a
Okay.
significant difference. Your job didn't change dramatically the day you became assistant superintendent.
No, when I was on the fence coming over from Hopedale, and I was concerned, I can remember, good old Aldo Chakey interviewing and saying literally to me that it's a difference of adding a few zeros, Kathy, so, and he was absolutely spot on.
I don't want it to be lost though on anybody here that there's been a lot of challenges in this district surrounding operations within the district and functions of the spending function, so to speak. I'm going to try and be vague, but this isn't something that we can consider lightly. There's a lot of implications here, and there's a lot of things that Ms. Perry has done over the last few years that have been instrumental to this district. So this is a serious consideration to me, for me.
And you're right, John, the role is not going to change whether the title is school business manager or assistant superintendent. Even the deputy commissioner of finance looking out at all the school business managers, said whatever your title is, the work is all the same, and that was at a meeting, so, of all of us.
I think, yeah, to John's point, it's just how that hiring process is, and I think that me personally, being a part of that process and being a voice to that process, I think is going to be very important, right? Because part of what we do is budget, and what our business relations manager does is budget. So, anything else on that? We'll again bring it up at the next meeting and continue.
Yeah, I'll have a couple
Yeah.
draft job descriptions.
Okay.
Ready to go.
All right.
And a potential timeline. And honestly, I wasn't looking to get this one started till after the holidays anyway, so I think if we can come to some conclusion or close to some conclusion at the next meeting, I think that works.
Excellent. And circling back just quickly, the Director of Technology Grants, can we get copies of that before that goes out, just to see what?
Yeah, and
needs?
it's, I don't think we're gonna make a lot of tweaks from the last
Yeah.
one, it's only 4 years old.
Okay.
It's pretty consistent.
Yep.
With what we've done previously. I mean, it's different than, what is it, Cap, 20 how many years?
Oh, gosh. Well, we reposted when I became assistant superintendent. So it's actually not that old. So maybe 10, 12 years.
The one I looked at wasn't very good though.
Oh, there's an updated one that's
Okay,
very good.
all right, so we were looking
Yeah.
at the wrong one today.
Yeah, you might have
Okay,
looked at the
yeah, I mean,
20-year-old one.
Excellent. All right, very good. And moving on. So for our report from our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources, Mrs. Barrett.
Yes, I have for the committees this evening 7 warrants, and my contacts are totally dry in this room. I think it's $875,267.16.
All right. Motion to approve the warrant. Motion by Robin, second by Matt. All in favor? That is unanimous.
Chris, just one quick comment.
Yes.
One of the pages, Kathy, is missing an amount on the cover sheet. Just
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And for the committee's approval this evening, there is a personnel update. No vote is required. We do have a vote required for professional development.
Looking for a motion then to accept the professional development. Motion by Matt, second by Megan. All in favor? That is unanimous.
And we have our varsity cheerleading team looking to do an out-of-state travel request for the period of March 13th to March 18th to Florida. And they will be missing 3 days of school for full transparency.
And this is a trip that has been requested many times.
I'm going to pass this over to you because I'm going to abstain from it.
Oh, okay. So do we have a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for the varsity cheerleaders? A motion by Robin, second by Brandon. All in favor? That's 5 in favor, 1 abstention.
Abstain. So, thank you.
Sorry, I don't have a laptop. I'm trying to.
I know. I
trying to follow.
and I meant to give you a heads up on it. Yeah. So, because my daughter is on that team, so that's why I abstain from that. Next, subcommittee updates.
She can go first.
Okay.
I was just going to say the Labor and Management Committee
Yes.
met, and it was great. There were representatives from each school present who talked about different things that are happening at the schools, different concerns teachers have. It sounded like, for the most part, administration was aware and working on most of the different issues. The one that seems to be kind of out of everybody's control, but everyone's thinking about is the parking for Memorial and Stacy staff. There's just more staff than there are spaces. So that seems to be kind of an ongoing concern, but it sounded like for the most part, all the other concerns were things that either had been or will be addressed by administration.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Matt.
So facilities subcommittee met, I believe it was last week, and actually I'll start by saying just out loud to everybody on the last comment about parking is that there was an unexpected discussion about parking at Memorial and Brookside and Stacy. Naturally, Brookside's an easier one to address simply because we have space to do things, but it is on the radar, and the town engineer was involved in the discussion. So people are certainly trying to figure out how we can make life better, but it's obviously a very tricky space, especially at Stacy and Memorial. So, but the primary reason we were there was to get an update on the addition at Brookside. And again, the town engineer did join us. I believe Chris read her note to him and John last meeting about some concerns that she had. So I'll just remind you of some of those concerns. There was some paving concerns around the foundation. There's a low spot between the addition and the building where water is pooling up right now. There was some other workmanship pieces called out. So Carlos was there, and again the town engineer was there, and he actually did call the general contractor who has been on site running the project, and we were informed that the paving work that doesn't look so great around the outside is actually temporary, and that was done on purpose. I guess they put it in place and kind of let it settle, and the plan has always been to come back in the spring and finalize the paving officially the right way. So that piece doesn't seem like it's as big of a concern anymore. They are discussing what to do about the low spot in the drainage. I know that the town engineer wasn't quite sure which way to work that, but I'm sure they'll come up with some solution with her involved, and also, again, Carlos and the general contractor are very well aware of that problem. There was another one that kind of got my attention that is also on the list to get updated. There's an outlet in the crawl space that is just tripping and unusable. So right now there's an extension cord plugging into the wall in one of the classrooms and running kind of down under the building. That's known as well. The plan is to address it there. They're putting a second hatch in to get underneath there, and the understanding is that when they do that, they're going to fix that problem at the same time and clear that up. So it seems like most of the stuff that was brought up was understood. The general contractor did know about it and does have a plan to address it. So I think at the moment anyway, it's it was left off where Carlos and the facilities team was going to work with the general contractor to finalize a formal piece of paper of what's open, so that we have that one last punch list to go off of before we can move on with actually closing up this project. Did I miss anything?
Just they're gonna have to also fix up some of where they were parking on the side.
Yes,
too.
yeah, the right side.
The swales and stuff.
They dug
Drainage.
up some ground over there with the trucks, but I think it's not. There was something about where the ground is. They can't fix it right now, but that's also
Yeah,
going to
they're
get
gonna
done.
wait till the springtime. So there's still a few punch list items to fix up. Contractors aware of it. We're aware of it. So moving forward. Yes.
I didn't see an invoice, Kathy, in the warrant tonight. We're still at the same place in terms of how much we're holding back.
Correct.
Thanks.
Any other subcommittee updates? Any questions to our subcommittee representatives? Not seeing it. Excellent. All right then. Moving on to future agenda items. Obviously, I have the job listing as one of them. The next, any others? I guess on my list, not as critical, but the CAF table update. Whether or not we kind of got the building project update here, so if there's anything more as far as I know the lights, the softball lights, anything like that. Also have
I
on
can give you
here.
the softball lights real quick if you want to. I mean, it's just as an announcement.
Sure.
We think it's going to get done in the next couple of days. It's very close.
That's great.
Sometimes that's when things get pushed off,
Yeah.
but they're very close to being completed, that
Yeah.
project.
I have also, maybe a report from our newcomers, this an update, just an update on, from the grade level and from a staff level on that. I know that the Board of Select brought it up recently, and I haven't reached out to Brian Murray, I guess more from the representative side, so maybe potentially get him in at a future meeting just to see what might be available from the state side of it as we, from the impact standpoint. And then also the general attendance and tardiness review, again, just from an overall scope and see where we're at, as opposed to right now. I know we focused a little bit on the habitual, but just to see where are we at, and just from a day-to-day standpoint. We'll see how that all falls in as we get to the 21st. So that's what I have mainly on my list. So if there's anything else, let me know. But with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Brendan, second by Robin. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.